From San Diego State University, celebrating a century of learning, this is KPBS San Diego.
The following program is produced in association with KCET Los Angeles and is seen statewide on California Public Television. This series is endorsed by the California Teachers Association, the California School Boards Association, and the California Library Association.
California's gold is provided to the PBS network statewide through a grant from Wells Fargo Bank. Wells Fargo, coming through for Californians for over 140 years.
Hi, I'm Huell Howser, and right now we're out here on San Francisco Bay. Now we're heading for an island out in the bay, and it's not Alcatraz. The island we're heading for is just a little bit bigger, and it's chocked full of history. They also tell us there are all kinds of neat things to do on it. So if you're ready for an honest-to-goodness island adventure, come on along with us as we continue our search together, this time in San Francisco Bay, for California's gold.
They call it the Jewel of San Francisco Bay. This beautiful island that's visible from the city on all but the foggiest days. Now, it's not nearly as well known as Alcatraz. In fact, it remains somewhat of a mystery even to many native San Franciscans, even though it's the largest island in the bay, a square mile. The place is rich in history, starting with the fact that 3,000 years ago, several villages of the native coastal Miwok Indians were here. Back in 1775, Spanish explorers were here. And these days, it's a California state park. Now, we were invited to visit the place and see for ourselves just what it had to offer. And pulling into the beautiful little harbor, we knew right away we were visiting a very special place.
Morning.
Morning,
How you
Huell.
doing?
Welcome to Angel Island State Park. Glad to have you here.
Nice to meet you, sir. This is our visitor center over here. This is where we kind of check in, I guess.
Well, you get a good orientation to Angel Island if you enter there. A little bit of the history and where to go on the island. Huell, the first thing I can tell you about our island here is just where you docked on your ferry was where all the ships had to dock before they went to San Francisco. This was a quarantine station. And back before the turn of the century, there were 40 buildings in this cove. There were hospitals, homes for Army surgeons, administration buildings.
Now, what do you mean quarantine stations? Why would you have to have a quarantine?
Well, the art of medicine before the turn of the century was pretty bad shape in other countries. People came into this country, had diseases and communicable diseases, so they had to be brought here and checked out and be made well before they could enter the country.
So they would come here and be checked out and then get back on their ship and go over to the San Francisco harbor and get off.
Right, all ships entering San Francisco Bay came to Hospital Cove, as it was called in those years, first. Also, there was a ship that was permanently anchored here in the cove. Its name was the Omaha, and it was an old steam vessel, and its boilers were used to generate steam to fumigate the ships that came in here so that there would be no rats or vermin left before the ship entered San Francisco itself.
So in addition to checking out the people, the passengers, they also fumigated every single ship that went into the harbor of San Francisco?
That's correct.
Right here in this cove?
Yes.
How long did that go on?
Up until the turn of the century. Then the state of medicine in other countries advanced so much that it wasn't necessary and ships could dock directly in San Francisco.
So this was
known as Hospital Cove? Is that what you called it?
Yes. Now we call it Ayala Cove, after the first ship that entered San Francisco Bay, and he dropped his anchor right here in front of us.
What year was that?
1775.
Well, I'll tell you, the new name sounds a lot better than Hospital Cove, don't you think?
Yeah, more appealing, doesn't it?
And there's the ferry boat right now that we just got off of, and it's going back, I guess, over to San Francisco to pick up another load of people.
Look at the beautiful scenery over there.
Well, we left Ranger Dan for a couple of hours and traveled next to another part of the island in order to meet up with Paul Chow, who's been instrumental in preserving a very important chapter from Angel Island's past for future generations. Now, Paul, I guess this is the logical place to start the tour.
You're certainly right. This is the Plymouth Rock for the Asians in American history. And this is the place where all the Asians arrive in America to make their new life of Gamsan in America.
From the West Coast.
From the West Coast, the most logical part is all the Asians arrive in the West Coast, all the Europeans arrive on the East Coast.
Now, was there a pier out here? Would the boats pull up here from China, literally?
Yes, there was a boat that came in. The largest ship came in and anchored out, and they were all put on a smaller boat and brought to this island. And in this island is the determination if they stayed in America or they could be deported.
Now, what was the significance of the bell? Did it ring? Where was it?
Yes, the bell was on the end of the pier. It was actually a bell built for the fog, you know, the San Francisco fog. And when they have foggy nights, the people would hear the bell go bong, bong. It was a very significant psychological factor of the people that kept on the island.
What do you mean?
Because the sadness of the bell. The situation here was sad because these people were coming to a new world where didn't know if they're going to stay or they're going to be deported back to China.
Yeah. So this is the original bell right here.
1910. It was here in 1910. And later on, it was used as a telegraph message for the immigration officials to report to the station.
What do you mean a telegraph?
Well, back in the old days, they didn't have the intercoms. So when a ship arrived with about a few hundred immigrants, they would ring that bell, go bong, 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 and everybody in the island knew that here comes another group of heathens. We were called heathens.
Really?
That's right. We're going to have to process these heathens, and we're going to send them all back to China because this station was built not to welcome the Chinese, but it was used to deport the Chinese back to China according to the Exclusion Act of 1882 to 1924. This is the immigration barracks where all the Chinese stayed between 1910 and 1941, proving the right to enter America.
So these are the original barracks?
This is the original barracks, yes. Exactly, we have recreated to give historic restoration, to give the feeling of how the immigrants felt when they stayed here.
What have we got in here? Oh, this is, you have a whole, let's go in here and we can kind of go around here. So this is
the women's bedroom. This is where they stayed. The women, the older women would stay on the bottom. The younger children would stay on the top. And this is the way they lived. 24 hours a day. They were not allowed to leave this room. They were not allowed to go anywhere except for 3 meals a day in the main building. And this is how totally they kept here, and they kept here until they proved the right to enter America.
Now, how many people stayed in these barracks?
Well, in this room alone, it's about a 35 by 35 room. There are 96 bunks in this room. However, it's not as crowded as you think. In the morning, these bunks can fold up. And they can provide room for children to play, for people to do their daily work, sewing and reading and just gossiping.
And people hung the laundry up.
Yes.
Across here.
They didn't understand there were no washing machines. They felt that this is the only way they can do it, so they hung the laundry where they slept and kept the belongings with them, because these were very valuable things. These are things they brought from China.
How much stuff were they
allowed to bring in?
Oh, they allow a trunk or two, but in China, the people have not much. That's why they're coming into America, because they were very poor, and China was totally devastated by political and economic.
So they could have gotten almost everything they wanted to in a suitcase.
That's right. Most of them
like
were.
this.
Right. And they have the medicine, they have the clothing, they have their dinnerware, they have their beauty equipment, whatever they have in this one case.
Didn't we have someone who was actually here with the group?
Yes, like here.
Can you come over here and talk with us just a second?
Certainly.
Now, were you in a room like this?
I remember when we came in 1933, I do not remember the bunk beds, okay? I remember that we were segregated because we were women. So my mother, Lai Hong, Lai Hua, and I were right next to each other.
Your sisters.
My sisters, Oh, yes.
Now, what did you think about all this when you got
that
off the
time-
boat? This was your first
Experience.
experience in America.
At that time, being so young, I really didn't think very much about this place. However, we were kind of shocked in the sense that the windows and the doors were barred, okay? And my mother said, oh my, this looks like a prison, isn't it? But we were not actual prisoners, okay? And we were followed whenever we went out to eat. We were followed when we went to the bathroom. We were followed back here from the dining common. And the immigration official would lock the door, and they would stand back and kind of peer through the window and looked at us.
What is interesting is they look at the toilets. You have no privacy. Chinese women are very, very, very shy. So you think they're going to sit there and go to the toilet and looking at each other? No. What they do is they have developed a system to give them their own privacy. There are paper bags at the bottom of the step. Every woman that comes into this toilet would carry a large paper bag. And when they come and sit on the toilet, they put that paper over their head, and then can have their paper bag solitude.
Really?
Yes. Then they can talk to each other, but they don't have to see each other doing their daily needs. Really? Wow. That's right. So now this is their way of overcoming the way that they are treated in this barracks.
Isn't that interesting that, well, I mean, it's a perfect example of not being sensitive to understanding
Right.
the culture of the people
that
who are
come here.
coming in.
Right.
Your mother was here?
That's right. That's right. To ask her, Sarah, Shirley.
What kind of stories did you hear from your mother about what it was like here?
Our
You're
mother was
kidding.
here.
She never wanted to talk about Angel Island.
Really?
I mean, it was shameful. My father actually forbid my mother to ever even mention it.
See what happened? She was one of the honest people. My mother was a teacher, taught my women education in China. Well, she actually went to a Christian missionary teachers college, and she became a school teacher, and that's the only way any women in China could have gotten any education. She came here, she's a very proud lady, and she couldn't answer any of those dumb questions they asked. Like
That Immigration Act.
Right. So she got deported. And my father and she had to go back to Shanghai, and came back the second time. And this time, things were a little easier.
When I asked my parents where we came in when I was 5, my parents says, Angel Island, shh. You know that I ran back to school and told the teacher that we came through Angel Island, shh, as a one word. I didn't realize
Angel Island, shh.
Yeah. And I thought it was Angel, A-N-G-E-L, I-S-L in Indian, S-H, shh.
Angel Island, shh.
Right. And I didn't realize it was not one word until I grew up.
Really?
Yes. And that's why it started me on this crusade. That's how it began.
So it's no longer Angel Island, shh.
Right now, the
It's
children.
Angel Island.
Angel Island Immigration Station. This is where my parents and my forebears came through, and this is how I became an American.
Well, Victor, here we are in probably one of the most historic spots on this historic island.
Well, this is Camp Reynolds. It was established in 1863 because of public concern of Confederate raiders coming into the bay. And behind us, we have the largest collection of wooden buildings from the Civil War period in the United States.
Really?
Yes, we do.
I would have thought the largest collection of wooden buildings from the Civil War would have been, you know, in Virginia or Mississippi or Georgia or somewhere.
Well, that's similar to the belief that there wasn't very much Civil War activity here on the West Coast, but there actually was.
Now, why did they feel it was necessary to station Union troops here back in the 1860s?
Well, there were three objectives that the Confederates were looking to go after. One was the largest munitions plant on the West Coast in Benicia. We also had the U.S. Mint in San Francisco and the gold and silver fields up in Nevada and California.
So they thought that the Confederates might try to raid San Francisco, so they put how many troops were here?
There was approximately 200 stationed here during the Civil War period.
Now, how did these buildings survive all of this time? Because they're sitting there deserted now.
Well, the Department of Parks and Recreation in California boarded up the buildings and put new roofs on them with the idea that in the future we could restore the buildings.
And you have these kind of reenactments out here from time to time so that
Yes.
the visitors can get a sense of what it was like?
Yes, we do. This group is called the Cal 100. It was a group of 100 volunteers that went back and fought with the 2nd Massachusetts during the Civil War.
From California?
From California.
It really happened here. This isn't a museum.
It isn't, and for me it's very special. My great-great-grandfather, Abraham Lone, was in the Cal 100, so we are descendants of the original members. And for me, being born in the Bay Area in San Francisco, my great-great-grandfather coming from California, it's deja vu, it's history happening right now. It's very real.
Yeah.
It gives it
part of what Angel Island is all about.
That's right. We come out here for different campouts, and at night when it's quiet, you can hear the past. It's not, it's not freeways and cars. You can hear the past. The Civil War is here.
You know, Angel Island isn't that big, and there's only one kind of bumpy old road that goes around it. But it seemed everywhere we went on the island was like a chapter out of a history book.
Huell, I brought you here because this is one of the most important parts of the history of Angel Island. During World War II, the whole island was called Fort McDowell. And today, this construction that you see around you represents that whole era. This was the processing unit for soldiers who were going off into the Pacific Campaign. The original construction actually started during the Civil War. But slowly, slowly, the military built up all of these buildings that you see around you. And major construction started in World War I, and by World War II, they had completed the gymnasium straight ahead of us, the PX off to the left, the guardhouse down below us.
Now, how many men passed through here over the years? Is there any count of...
I don't have any clue. It's thousands and thousands of men. During World War II, there would be approximately 8,000 men on the island at Fort McDowell here during a day. There were so many men that they had to take shifts at feeding them through the chow hall, 3,000 at a time.
Now, is all this just sitting here kind of decaying? What's going to happen to it?
Well, that takes lots of money to preserve buildings like this. We have restored the guardhouse down below, which is the new visitor center.
Here's the visitor
and
center
we'd like to see some other buildings restored, but this is millions of dollars we're looking at here. We would like to keep it in a state of arrested decay until we see other funding for restoration.
So the really significant part this plays today is a reminder to the, I guess, hundreds of thousands of men who passed through here in the past 90 years.
Mm-hmm. We have some people who were stationed here. Some men staff the chapel up above on weekends, and they can give us stories of Fort McDowell when the thousands of men were here. My feeling is when I come here is I can hear Glenn Miller playing.
Yeah.
His sound is wafting through these halls of these buildings.
A lot of ghost stories around here, right? A lot of ghosts, a lot of memories from Army days.
Sure. This was the mustering out point if you survived World War II.
Really?
A big welcome home banner was placed on the side of the island. You saw it as you came home aboard ship. You docked down below. You were put into a barracks. You were processed out. And you went down to the paymaster building to receive your last check before you went home.
Wow. So there are a lot of people alive today seeing this program who would remember being here.
I hope they have fond memories of the place. This was their chance to go home from the war.
Traveling from old Fort McDowell, next we had to unlock some gates and drive down a little entrance road in order to get to another of Angel Island's historic sites. This one rather obscure.
Huell, I brought you here because Angel Island also has a bit of Cold War history. Stored 50 feet below us were some Nike missiles. You're standing on the opening vault right here. The missiles were slid out on these racks. During the 1950s and 60s, we had anti-aircraft missiles right here on the island. Hard to believe today. Finally, the military gave up on Nike missiles and closed this site down and the island for their use in 1962.
So this has been sitting here deserted like this since the early 60s.
Correct.
Wow. So over the years, Angel Island has always been considered militarily significant for one reason or the other.
Being in the center of the bay, it's a very strategic location, even for missiles, to shoot down the Russian backfire bomber that were outside the gate, supposedly coming to attack us.
Look at all this stuff over here. This kind of stuff fascinates me because it's just sitting here all rusted, and yet just, you know, a couple of decades ago, this place was just bristling with missiles and personnel over here to guard us against the communist threat, against the communist bombers that would be coming over to bomb San Francisco.
Yeah, can you imagine the missiles sitting up in the air at near perfect position, 90 degrees up, so that they could be fired?
And now it's all rusted out. And look what we found here on the side of part of this. Evidently, the Nike missile section that was based here was called the B section. So they've drawn a B here, and right at the tail is a Nike missile.
The Stinger.
Now, that's
Yes.
part of the history of this island, too.
Sure.
A little piece of art from the Cold War on Angel Island, the B section. It's interesting that all of these different components of military history here have been saved. Civil War, World War I, World War II, Cold War. It's all here on one island.
A microcosm of the defense of our nation. But it's also interesting that not a shot was fired here for all this military buildup over a century.
Really? There never was?
No, never in anger.
Now, we have been on Angel Island now for 2 days. This is the end of our second day. We're getting ready to go back over to the mainland tomorrow morning. And Dan has brought us up here. It's about, what, 7:15 at night?
Well, that's correct.
And he's brought us up to the top of
Mount Livermore.
which is the highest point on the island,
Yes, it's 781 feet high.
to give us a parting shot that you're not going to believe. It is the most breathtaking. Look at this view of San Francisco. This is what you live with over here every day, isn't it?
This is my backyard.
Gosh, look at this shot. This is absolutely unbelievable. Now, Alcatraz Island is just right over here.
That's it.
And that's the island that's gotten all the attention, that
And
gets
fame.
all the visitors.
Fame, yes. They have approximately 1 million visitors a year to Alcatraz. People stay about an hour, 2 hours, and leave. It's a nice tour, but look what all we have here on Angel Island, and far, far fewer visitors.
How many?
Probably 200,000 a year, but at least people stay here about 6 hours before they leave. They love
Why?
it so much.
Why has this place remained such a secret It's sitting right here in plain view for everybody to see.
I suppose we need to make some movies about the place. Huell, what's interesting about this place is, look right over there. There are hundreds of thousands of people living over there, densely populated civilization. But here, right in the center of the bay, we have this wonderful, absolutely pristine, natural area where people can come, and it's a protected state park. It will be this way forever. It's right in the deed. And when they come here, they'll be able to enjoy all this wonderful cultural history spanning over 100 years. They'll be able to walk around, go walk along the beaches, enjoy all this peaceful serenity that we offer here on the island. And they'll get the feeling that we rangers have, that this is truly the jewel of San Francisco Bay.
Well, our adventure to Angel Island is over. We're now back on the ferry heading across the bay to San Francisco. But what a great time we had on this small island that is so full of our state's history. A small island that is a perfect example of California's gold. Until next time, I'm Huell Howser. Goodbye, everybody. There it is, Angel Island.
California's gold is provided to the PBS network statewide through a grant from Wells Fargo Bank. Wells Fargo, coming through for Californians for over 140 years.
If you enjoyed our program about Angel Island and would like to see it again or share it with your family and friends, just call 1-800-266-KPBS and we'll send it to you right away.
Tonight on KPBS, Ken Bodie hosts our weekly look at news and politics, Washington Week at 8, followed by Wall Street Week at 8:30. Then at 9, the Battle of France begins a 6-part look at the momentous battles of World War II. Also at 11, enjoy Stanley Kubrick's science fiction classic 2001, A Space Odyssey.
Midway, Stalingrad, Normandy, Berlin. Battles that determined a war and forever altered history. Examine World War II with original film, rare color footage, and state-of-the-art 3D graphics. Explore the stories, the strategies, and the costs of the most momentous battles of World War II. Battlefield.
Battlefield returns tonight at 9 on KPBS.
To develop optimal health, you must look at the whole picture. Most people I meet have parts of it. Some eat well. Others have their exercise down. Still others have the spiritual component. But you've got to put all of these components together. You've got to integrate body, mind, and spirit into a complete and balanced lifestyle.
Sunday at 8 p.m. on KPBS.
There's something extraordinary about this place, something indescribable that affects each of us.
KPBS presents our beautiful region as you've never seen it. San Diego above all. Sunday night at 9:30. From San Diego State University, celebrating a century of learning, this is KPBS San Diego. Travels in Europe is made possible by the members of KPBS and our program underwriters. Let Travel Store, the complete store for travelers since 1976, has over 2,000 maps and guidebooks, including all titles by Rick Steves, plus money belts, travel packs, voltage converters, and more. Let Travel Store and Council Travel are located together on 4th Avenue in the Gaslamp Quarter.
This series is funded in part by CD-Com, a Seattle-based company offering a digital alternative to microfiche, an efficient and effective way to protect both your data and the environment.